everybody. Welcome to the Sacred Femme Alchemy podcast, a podcast to help you on your sacred feminine journey towards self-love and healing. I'm your host, Lisa Mae Francisco, a sacred feminine guide and mentor. In the podcast, we'll dive deep on how to heal your core wounds, reclaim your feminine power, and liberate your truth so you can be your wild, authentic self. Thanks so much for listening. I'm super excited that you're here. Hi, everybody. Welcome back. Super excited to be here. Super excited to share another episode with you from my heart. It's another solo episode. And the thing that's coming up that's tried and true and real for me in this moment is talking about my sobriety. So usually when I do these episodes, I like to share what's tried, true, and real. And a couple of weeks ago, I celebrated my 13th anniversary. I've been sober for 13 years, and that definition of sobriety has definitely changed over time. I think if you talk to someone that has, over 10 years, it definitely gets a little bit different because who you came into sobriety as you were just completely changes and it shifts, just as with all things, right? Relationships to anything, relationships to experience in your life, relationships to people, relationships to certain definitions, ideas, visions that you've held. They just evolve as you as a person does. And so what really sparked this was when I started reconnecting with a lot of people in my life who had known me in my past. And when I reconnect with them, usually it's on the premise of the work that I'm currently doing right now of being a sacred feminine mentor, of being a spiritual teacher and a guide. They often say, we can really see the difference. Oh my goodness. This is so cute. So there are little children outside my window and they're singing songs because it's lunchtime and they're on their way to the park. It is so cute. That's actually the highlight of my day when I get to see all these little kids out and enjoying life and spending time with nature. That's really sweet. And so anyways, but back to this. So I've had a lot of people in my life who've come back to me, who've popped in and just they validate and affirm this fundamental shift and difference of who I was before and who I am now. And I'm really feeling it in my life where I have so much peace around a lot of things. And, in spirituality, we often talk about the dark night of the soul, the dark night of the soul. And if you don't know what the dark night of the soul is, it's really about, honestly, this is my own interpretation of it. When I look back and think about my dark night of the soul, which is basically my 20s and early 30s, I would say probably 18 to 35 for me. That was my dark night of the soul. That's a long fucking time. But it was just really me not knowing or having a sense of who I was, me not trusting myself, me not feeling confident. And it's so interesting because it was a lot of external validation. It was a lot of feeling lost. It was a lot of feeling like I was trudging, not knowing my worth, not even having self-love, not being confident. And in retrospect, I am grateful for those experiences because it perfectly aligns to the work that I'm doing now and how I get to help people, because I get to draw from these experiences and stories and show people that there is a different way. And sometimes when you're in that moment, when you're stuck in it and you just feel like there is no way beyond it, it changes. Give time. It changes. Just as how there are cloudy days, there is always sun behind the clouds, even if you cannot see it. There is always a sun behind the rain, even if you cannot see it, even if the clouds are there and it's gloomy. And so I just say that because when I think in retrospect of where I was and where I've been and who I am now, it's literally night and day. It is night and day. And just people coming up to me is just a huge testament. And so what I'm going to do with this episode is just really share my story with sobriety, how I got started. I know there are a couple of people who are like, how do you stay sober? I didn't know that you were sober. Or, oh, when I tell them, it makes so much sense. And so it's become this evolution of something that I was so shameful about to something I don't even second guess. Like, it's being sober is just so cool, apparently, because not everyone's doing psychedelics, and that's like everyone's doing drugs for spiritual use and not necessarily as a way to disassociate. I think, you know, the new generations have definitely been more internal facing, meaning they're more connected to their internal realm. And I actually saw that when I did a manifestation circle a couple weeks ago for this group of BIPOC people in Northern California. And I was so amazed because the age range was from, I think, 19 to 50. And there were a lot of young people there. And I was so amazed at how much hope they had for the world, for themselves, wanting to do better, wanting to serve the collective. And my best friend was there with me, and we were laughing because when we were that age in college, she was my college roommate, we were thinking, oh my gosh, we were such a hot mess. I did not care about the world. I was just trying to think about where was the next happy hour. Like, I couldn't even think beyond me. And in that realm, it wasn't even necessarily about serving the collective. It was more about, what is the job that I can get to make me a lot of money? What is the job that I can get to help me pay off, student loan debt or whatever? It was just, the collective was just not an equation. And so it really touches my heart when I see people that are so young that are really evolved. At that age, I can only imagine what they're going to be like in their mid to late 30s and 40s and all of that. So I just wanted to share that. And so I actually got sober when I was 24. I got sober in 2011. So I'm 37 now. And at that time, I was living in New York. I always feel like I say that I was living in New York. Well, I spent all my 20s and 30s in New York. So yeah, but I just got to a point where I think my drinking and using just once I was 21 in college, that's just when it kind of took off. And then I went to New York. I realized, oh, everybody drinks here, and you can have so many different happy hours, and you can hang out with all these different people, and no one will question you because everyone's doing it, and everyone's always hungover on Friday and Saturday, and it's just normal to have brunch really late or do Sunday fun day and have day drinking. And so that was just very much the culture that I was not accustomed to. Granted, I went to a party school for my undergrad, but I didn't start partying until I was 21. But I just remember at the time being 24, I was seeing a therapist, and she would ask me about my drinking. And I just was like, bitch, I don't want to talk about my drinking. You are going to tell me to stop, obviously. And so for myself, I just thought, okay, I just don't. And then it got to a point where I realized that I had to, and I was blacking out a lot. For anyone that blacks out a lot, that is a sign. It's not the amount, it's the quantity of how much you drink at a given moment. To me, that's what defines someone who has a problem with drinking and using. And also, what do you use it for? Right? Like, why do you reach for it? Just as how someone reaches for food to anesthetize themselves, or someone reaches for sex to anesthetize themselves, or someone buys, clothes compulsively. That is a form of addiction, meaning it's a maladaptive, a coping mechanism, that's what it is. And so mine happened to be drinking. And, I wouldn't drink every day. I wouldn't. I know there are some people that do, and people think, oh, that's the definition of someone who has a problem. No, someone who has a problem is the amount of alcohol you consume or drugs that you consume in that given moment, in that given time period. And so if you are blacking out constantly, then you need to chill. And that is my opinion. And you don't have to agree with me, but that is just my opinion. And I knew for myself that that's what my therapist, who I was seeing at the time, was currently getting at. And I just did not want to give it up because I was so young. I was 24. I'd only been seriously drinking since I was 21. So I only had a 3-year stint. And I thought, I haven't even really lived. But I just knew, and everyone knew. Everyone knew what I couldn't see, what I didn't see. And a lot of people knew that I had a problem, and they would try to tell me, but I just wouldn't listen. Anyone that told me that I had a problem, I just scoffed at them and told them, I don't want to hang out with you anymore. That's how childish I was. It's like taking a pacifier from a baby, right? And once I finally understood, okay, I think I actually do. I think I do have a problem. I had this come to Jesus moment of, it's just this awakening of, it's either now or never that I learn to deal with this. I can either deal with it when I have kids and a family and a really good job. I was in a super cush job at the time, and I said, okay, fine. Like, I think I have to deal with this. And so I ended up telling her, okay, I think you're right. And so she told me to go to a 12-step program. So she told me to go to a 12-step program, and that's what kept me sober. And I remember when I was in that program, and people are telling me, oh yeah, you don't necessarily have to stay sober. I remember people are telling me they were going in and out, and they just kept going back into the rooms, into meetings. And I thought, okay, I can do that too. I can do this for a little bit and then stop. And then, because I don't really have a problem, because all y'all are like crazy. And then I remember going to this meeting, this 12-step meeting, and all the women were drop dead gorgeous. They were drop dead gorgeous. They had designer bags. They had beautiful makeup. They were dressed so beautifully. And I thought, y'all have a problem with drinking? Am I in the right room? Okay, I think I can identify. I think I can say I have a problem too, Um, God speaks to me through spiritual vanity. It's so funny. And there were women who had different accents and were from these exotic places, and they just looked so beautiful and gorgeous. And I thought, okay, I want what they have, even if it was just on the outside, because for me it was telling people's insides through their outsides, which I realize now you can't do that. Like, you can't say how someone's doing based on their outsides, because they can feel like shit on the inside. And so I ended up staying sober. It was definitely hard. It was hard in a sense of having to think of new patterns and ways of being. In New York, in your 20s, it's so common to go out for a drink. I would think, well, what am I going to do with my friends? What am I going to do on dates? And then people gave me this genius thought of, you hang out with them during the day. You can go to a museum. You can go to an art gallery. You can go to a show. You can grab coffee. You can eat brunch. And it was all of these foreign activities, right? And so I thought, oh, okay, like maybe I could try that. And then, then I started getting into meditation, and then I started to see my life in a different lens. It was definitely hard. Something I learned was people, places, and things. If you're trying to kick a habit, you need to arrange people, places, and things. And so if you're around people that are imbibing, then don't be around those people. It's temporary. Just how, anytime you're evolving spiritually, there are some people that are not going to like it because it makes them look at themselves and think, oh shit, am I doing something that I should change too? And sometimes people don't want to change, and you trigger people. And so you have to learn that when you're on this journey of coming home to yourself and evolving, that you are going to make people uncomfortable, and you're going to lose people, and you have to be okay with that. You have to be okay with that, because the right people are going to come in to take up that space. But if the old people are still there, there's no room for the new people to evolve, and the faster you'll get into that old habit that you're trying to break. And I just say that only out of experience. Again, everything, this is just my experience. You don't have to agree with it at all, but I'm just sharing my story. And so I just remember thinking, okay, I probably shouldn't go to my friend's birthday party because she's having it at a club and I'm just going to be focusing on everybody drinking and not me. And for a while, it was like that. For a while, it was like that. I felt like I couldn't go to things. My mind started focusing on the things that I couldn't do anymore. And there was that grieving period. And that's why when I was in this community of people to really help me stay sober physically, it was so component. It was integral to actually staying sober, because if I didn't have people to help me to be able to talk to the phone on, be like, hey, this just happened, blah, 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 blah. Because ultimately the reason why I drank was because I had a lot of feelings that I didn't know how to deal with. And so it's self-medication, basically trying to make myself feel a different way. And it's interesting because alcohol, like, it's a spirit. It's like a spiritual awakening when you drink it, because you completely turn into this different person. Your inhibitions are lowered. You just have this liquid confidence. And I always called it that, as this liquid confidence. It was like this liquid that made me become my highest self. And so I had to learn, how can I actually be my highest self without having that armor, with being completely vulnerable, with completely being open. And it felt very, very raw, and it felt really uncomfortable at times. And that's why I remember getting suggestions of, don't pull a geographic, don't move unless you have like over a year, or don't get into relationships. In retrospect, now I understand why, because you're literally this little sapling, you're this baby that's coming into form into this world. And you are actually living life as a human being, meaning you are experiencing everything and you're processing everything, but you don't have the tools to process it. And so really, if anything, if I can give a credit to 12-step programs, is that they really do give you a blueprint of how to live your life, of, getting self-awareness, of learning how your behavior affects others, learning about your relationship dynamics, learning at why you choose to do certain things, of why you drink and everything like that. And so it really was the foundation for spirituality. Granted, I grew up as a Catholic. I'm not practicing, but I did have spirituality since I was a very young kid, of participating in different rituals, believing in a God, creating a different type of God that I believe in. And so, for those that don't know, 12-step programs are basically just spiritual programs. They're just like free spiritual programs, group therapy. And it works so well is because you have a community that you can go to, where you are all working together to better yourselves, to improve yourselves. And you do it day in and day out. And it's such a beautiful, diverse group of people. And granted, my experience with it has definitely changed, meaning that the resonance with it has stopped for a period in my life. And so I remember I was really heavily into it, I guess up until the pandemic. Up until the pandemic, like most people, when in-person group gatherings all of a sudden became online. And I was just so sick of being on Zoom, because I was on Zoom all the time for my job from 7 a.m. to, 6 p.m. and then having to go to a 12-step meeting at 7 p.m. I was like, no, I am done. Like, my attention just was not there. And so that's when it really started to change and shift. And the whole purpose of, getting into 12-step programs is to help you find a spiritual awakening, right? And so it's not necessarily a religious program, but it's more of, how do you connect with your spirit through connecting to a higher power? And for me, that has definitely morphed into different spiritual modalities. And so I got into somatic healing. I got into EFT tapping. I got into EMDR. I got into art. I got into other different communities like hypnotherapy. I got into breath work. I got into, I'm like, what else is there? What else did I get into? And so it just became this thing where, even though it really blossomed and opened my spirituality to this whole world of different spiritual modalities, it wasn't the same. It wasn't the same. And so I wanted to explore more. And that is the whole point of it, is helping you find your own spiritual awakening and your own spiritual path. And the thing that I don't like about, and I'm being very frank about 12-step programs sometimes, is that if you do decide to leave, for example, you often get ostracized, or people think, oh, it becomes a little cult like, where people think that if you actually leave or pursue something else, that you're going to go back out there and use. I have no desire to use. I have no desire to use. I have no desire to test. Oh, well, I've been sober for 13 years. Maybe I can have a drink again. I don't care. I've lived so long without it. I have no need to do it. Every time I see people and they seem hungover, I'm like, why would I? No, don't care. Don't care. And honestly, I want to increase my number. I don't want to have to, oh, nope, not sober. And that's just ego. That's just ego for me. But it was, and for those that are trying to be on that path of sobriety, I know for some people they just choose not to, drink alcohol or any of those hard drugs, but they'll choose to use drugs for psychedelic purposes, meaning ayahuasca is huge, microdosing is huge, Cambo, I mean, all of those indigenous plant medicines are very much popular. And so I know that that's coming back. That's coming back. And, people have told me, they said, oh, would you ever consider doing it? Would you want to do it? What does sobriety mean to you? And that's something that has changed. I did think about before, oh, I wonder if I should. But honestly, I'm too scared. I'm too much of a baby. I don't want to. I don't want to throw up from ayahuasca. I don't really want to have a bad trip from doing shrooms. And I've done shrooms before, but it's just different now. And the way that I have my psychedelic experiences is through working with the divine in a conscious way, meaning I'm literally sober. Like, I'm sober during these experiences. And I experience so many different synchronicities of shit that I cannot tell you. Like, I cannot make this shit up. And so it's really beautiful. And that to me is like, what? That's crazy. That's crazy. Some of the things that I do experience. And so because of that, I have no desire to. And, some of you may be wondering, like, okay, so you have 13 years, but like, how do you do it? What is it like, brass tacks? So for me, it was basically finding someone that you want to hold you accountable, right? Anytime you're trying to change a habit or create a new habit, tell people about it. Tell people so that they can hold you accountable and ask you, how is that challenge going for you? That desire to start this new habit, how is that going for you? And for me, I remember in the 12-step rooms, what they'll do is they'll make you count to 90 days of being sober or anything that you're, trying to do. So it's create that habit every single day. And I know in spiritual practices, sadhana. So sadhana is a daily spiritual practice, and it's advised to do it for 40 days. And so that's the similarities that I saw of, find someone that you can be accountable to, where you're telling them, hey, I'm doing this new thing, and I'd really love for you to hold me accountable and responsible for it. And then just tell them, like, okay, today I didn't drink today. And then if you want to, then start to look at the deeper reasons of why. What happened in your life that, or in that moment, in that day, where you actually wanted to take a drink? Were you stressed at work? Were you nervous about meeting up with a guy you like or a woman you like? Were you around family? Did someone piss you off on the road today? So just really look at your emotions and how they create those actions that you are thinking about of wanting to do. And so that is what I would suggest in terms of, the brass tacks of actually staying sober. So find someone you're accountable to, and then replace habits, right? So like I talked about, people, places, and things. If you are around people and places and things that involve you drinking or doing whatever, habit that you want to kick, you have to create a new community around yourself. And so if you want to, get in touch with your body, like maybe do yoga or do a workout class. And so it's replacing those habits. And also thinking about how to surround yourself with community of people who are going after the things that you want, or living the life that you want to live, and immersing yourself in that and finding new friends. And so those are the things that I would suggest. And, obviously having a therapist helps, especially someone that is, wanting to help you or help you navigate those feelings, because once you start to take away that crutch, because really that's all it is just a crutch of, why you're choosing to drink, then these feelings will come up that have been bottled inside. And I know that and that's all we are in life, right? We're all just trying to navigate our feelings that resurface, maybe trauma we've experienced from our family. You're either like, hate to think of it in like dualistic terms, but you're either healing or hurting. You're either in acceptance or not in acceptance. And how do you get that higher altitude of thinking when you're in that challenge, when you're in that situation? And so it's definitely, it's so interesting trying to sum up this journey in one podcast episode of 13 years, because I could literally break it down of, oh, this is what happened in year one, this is what happened in year two, these are the lessons that happened in year three. And so I'm just being super general about it and trying to give away as much information I can. But I mean, I have this podcast for how many other episodes? I can always just share more and more and more. But I just remember thinking how hard it was. And so once it's like anyone that heals on a spiritual level, it starts off with the body, the mind, and then the spirit. It's the Trinity. And the body meaning, how are you taking care of yourselves? In Tantra, they talk about the purification. They have different purification cleanses. What's in your body, what's in your thoughts, same when you want to up level, thinking about what are you actually consuming physically? Are you eating animals that are not, killed in a humane way? That energy goes into your body, all of that stuff. And so really thinking about how you even speak to yourself, how kind you're being to yourself. That is something that gets addressed when you are up leveling and starting to understand who you are at the core level, the very depths of your core. Who are you? And, you will get triggered. Like, you will get triggered. There's no way around it. You will grieve a little bit of the life you've had. You'll feel lost. But these are all human emotions. And I'm sitting here with such levity about them because I just think about, wow, I had a really dark cloud over my head and can't believe I made it through. I can't believe I made it through. And, it's interesting because I chose the card of Parvati, and hers is about devotion. And I love it. I absolutely love, love, love the messaging today. And I'm actually going to read it. Be right back. Okay. Normally people would be like, oh, why didn't you just pause your podcast? Because we do things in real time here. And I thought, I don't want to have to stitch together two different recordings. I'm lazy. And I'm trying to be real as fuck. Okay, just kidding. Not really. Okay. And so this is from the Colette Baron Reed Goddess Power Oracle deck. And if you want to tap into your divine feminine energy or want to understand more about goddesses, I do recommend that Oracle deck. It's amazing. Ooh, okay. So, devotion. True commitment comes from wholehearted living in body, mind, and spirit. When the Hindu goddess Parvati rises up to greet you, she's acknowledging you for your sincere devotion to personal growth. With a world in so much turmoil, it's not easy to devote yourself to higher knowledge and a strong faith. But if you are to serve others by being a bearer of love, compassion, and light, you must recommit yourself every day as unwavering your devotion as Parvati was to Shiva and her goal of bringing peace to the world. Parvati asks that you find silence in daily meditation to contemplate your devotion as well as your commitment to all of life and to making this world a better place. The great goddess is present when you renew your devotion and make that relationship primary above all else. Then in all areas of your life, your every choice will be in alignment and in service to this truth. When she comes to visit, it's a beautiful sign that you're on the right track. The goddess Parvati comes now to offer her help because blind faith in others isn't serving you, and devotion is something undeserving maybe showing up in your life. Ask yourself why you're so committed to someone or something you know deep down will fail you. Are you afraid of seeing things as they are? What if you let go and allow a higher force to guide you to the right people, places, and things that are in your highest good? Can you remember when the devotion to this ultimate spiritual partnership was reciprocated? Consider what happens when you place your attention only on money, status, ambition, and power. The world becomes narrow and you lose connection to a higher existence and your greater good. The goddess Parvati offers this alignment task. Get your spiritual life in order. Make prayer and meditation part of your daily routine. Act as if you believe that what is for you won't go past you and that what must proceed will do so without your interference. You'll be amazed at how everything falls into place. The goddess Parvati reminds you that you are so loved and cherished. Aw, that's so cute. I feel like that was such a perfect message for this particular podcast episode because it's all about my spiritual journey through sobriety. And for the last 13 years, spirituality has been my bed and rock. You know, one of the fundamental tenets of my life is spiritual improvement, personal improvement, learning to become better, not from a sense of being a perfectionist or being chronically dissatisfied. It's because I have this hunger and thirst to understand myself at a deeper level. Like I find that knowing my inner world is so important for me in order to help understand other people, and also being able to give that as a book and leverage that to someone. Like if I'm starting a new relationship with someone, I want to know what's going on inside me and not be reactive, but more proactive in how I'm showing up and responding into that relationship. Because if I'm not aware of what's happening and what's getting me triggered, then it's going to be projected onto you. You're going to be like, what the hell's up with this chick? You know? And that is anything that has, helped me the most in sobriety is self-awareness. Self-awareness 100,000%. And if, even if you look for a partner, I think that is the most important quality is self-awareness. Self-awareness beyond obviously their self, to understand you and to empathize with you as well. How much work people are actually doing, right? How much do they want to prove? Because sometimes I find that in the spiritual realm that it can be for vanity, right? Look at me, look what I'm doing. I know the way. Follow what I do, follow what I say. And it becomes this sort of guru mentality when really I find that what I've come to know, and there's still so much more to learn, is that being sober is just being your true self. Being your true self, getting comfortable with your true self, knowing your true self, and honoring that. Honoring that with such devotion and reverence, and not trying to contort yourself, and getting to know yourself, not as an extension of you, but more of a part of you, right? A part of you to understand that. And so I think it was, it's definitely evolved in terms of just not drinking physically. And then, my mind started to change with the purification processes of, the thoughts that I say to myself. Am I kind to myself? And then having that extend to other people. Am I kind to other people? What do I think? Am I constantly judging or criticizing other people? Am I putting people down, making themselves feel bad? Or what's the dynamic that I feel like I need to have? And getting in touch with my ego, that's been a huge thing. And being honest with myself about what my motives are and feeling connected to the truth. And I find that sometimes in community, it's hard to share the truth. It's hard to share the truth and really share what's going on. And don't get me wrong, there's a time and place for it. People will say, don't share from the wound, share from the scar, right? After you've healed and integrated it. But sometimes the most beautiful shares are when you're just the most raw and real. That creates so much intimacy and love and depth and connection. And, a lot of people tell me, oh, you're really, really honest in all of your podcast episodes. You're really good at sharing. And it's because I've had 13 years of training. Like, you go into these rooms and you're just literally talking about your feelings to a bunch of strangers about what's coming up for you. And so for me, I'm very comfortable with crying in front of an audience, crying in front of a group. I no longer feel like I have to hide behind a mask of what I'm feeling. I feel as if I can share, and I can cry, which is so beautiful, because before I used to hate crying. I used to be so numb to that emotion and sadness and want to bury it underneath and just suppress it and repress it. But I think if anyone's on this spiritual journey, if they're trying to get sober, just give time, just keep it in the days. And I've heard this too from other people. As long as I take care of the days, the years will take care of themselves. So do something for yourself every single day. And eventually it will compound. Eventually it'll get different. Eventually it'll change. You just never know. And don't give up. Don't give up. Don't give up. But yeah, I think I'm complete. I think I'm complete with this episode. I'm so grateful to all of the people that I've connected with in my past who have really seen the growth that I have done and where I was. And I think one of the most, it was really hard. It was really, really, really hard. And, I share bits and pieces about the harder experiences in my life. And, one of the three biggest things that I got from getting sober and just doing the inner work and living this spiritual life and path and serving others is maybe four. We'll see how many. I learned to mother myself. I learned to heal my inner girl, little Lisa. I learned to affirm her for those things that she always wanted when she was little. And because I was able to do that, it let other people off the hook. That's freedom. When I know how to tend to her because triggers are coming up, it's always just my inner child wounded, right? And so how do I create this connection with her? I have a connection with her. I have a relationship with her. I talk to her. I speak to her. I know her. I do things that she loves. I listen to her. And that is all from being on this path of coming home to myself. And because of that, I know that I'm going to be a really great mother. I know that for a fact. Like, I'm no longer scared of having kids. And for a while, I was very, very scared of having kids because I didn't know how to trust myself. And I see this a lot happen in women where they say, I don't know if I'll be a good mom, or I don't know if I want children, and that's fine. You can make your own decisions, whether you want to or not, but it's ones who are 50-50. It's because deep down inside, there's this feeling of, I don't know if I'll do a good job. I don't know if I trust myself. And my question to you is, how good of a mother are you to yourself? That's indicative of how good of a mom you'll be to other people. And I stand behind that. And another thing is my relationship with my parents. It's not linear. Healing is not linear, but I find that this time in my life, we have gotten to a place of just really understanding each other. And I lived with them for 3 years as an adult, and that was really hard. And in retrospect, I realized that was the thing that needed to happen, because unless that happened, I wouldn't have done inner child work. Absolutely not. And it wouldn't have catapulted me into this direction of wanting to serve others and finding self-love. Like when I tell people, what is the huge contributing factor, tell them it was inner child work. That's why I have inner peace on my face. That's why I feel so confident. That's why I fucking love myself so much, is because of inner child work. And that's what allowed me to have a really great relationship with my parents, and being able to be an advocate for myself as an adult when things, they did I didn't like. And so it's and it's also learning to love them as they are. And it's this time in our lives where I feel like we are getting along, and I no longer need them to be any other way than they are. Okay, that's how they are, whatever. And it's nice, and I love them, and I love spending so much time with them. And it was funny because yesterday I was hanging out with one of my old mentors who really helped me with this work. And I told her I was hanging out with my parents, and I just dropped them off the airport, and that I loved hanging out with them. I love being in that home, and I just get so much warm fuzzies, and I love being able to visit the place that I grew up when I was little, and I love visiting all of those places that made me who I was. And I love having memories come back to me. And I'm seeing the lighter side of things instead of the darkness and things. And don't get me wrong, doing this work, you really are open to seeing a lot of dark things that you want to suppress. But that's the thing. Once they come to light, it's like everything becomes spotlighted with beauty. And that's what Tantra is being able to see the divinity in everything, that not one thing, not one singular focus thing is the only thing that has the god or goddess in it. It's everything that has the goddess in it. So how can you actually see it? And that requires a higher perception, a divine perception, a divine seeing and knowing. And for me, it was that. And so, when she felt really touched when I shared that with her, because she remembers day in and day out how unhappy I was, how depressed I was, and how hard it was doing this work while living with my parents and being pulled in so many different directions of doing, my MBA and like working at a tech job. It was just so much. It was so much. And to be able to come and feel peace with it that is freedom. That is liberation. That's not running away. It's actually being okay with it, being okay with where you come from, being at peace with yourself and your journey, and saying, okay, it happened in the past, but now I know better and I've learned, and I'm going to do things differently. And our relationship is better as a result of it. And then the third thing is being able to call in my partner right now. I never trusted myself to think that I could actually call in someone that was someone that was so kind. I always thought that I would, settle for an emotionally unavailable person, because I thought that's just the pattern that you have and that's what you do. And I'd seen so many people in those types of relationships, and I just assumed that there weren't any emotionally available people, or that people who were available, they were already taken, and that was just the gunk that I needed to get out of my head. And I just remember diving more into this work, and that's what really shifted my perception of myself and my self-worth and my confidence and who I wanted to call in. And that's when I met my partner. And he's absolutely the kindest person. I shared it on a TikTok video that my idea of my ideal man is Danny Tanner from Full House, because Danny Tanner is so nice to his children. He never gets mad. He's so loving. He's so kind. And that is my partner now. Like when I see him with my nephews, I just think, oh my God, He's amazing. He's so great. Or just how kind he is to me and how loved he makes me feel all the time. Never makes me feel bad about for asking anything. Never gets angry with me. Or even, right now my cat is living with us for the time being as my parents are away. And my cat was just, meowing all night because he was in a new place. And I remember with my ex would just get angry at my cat if we moved to a new place. And, my partner just didn't. He just didn't get angry. He just would pet my cat Leo if he felt scared or was crying. And oh my gosh, so sweet. And I just remember thinking that was one of my greatest accomplishments, was being able to find someone that's so emotionally available and loving and cares about me and makes me feel so loved. And that's because I feel all of those things about myself. And that's the only reason why I could have called in my partner. And just the work that I do, right? And that's the fourth thing, the work that I do now. Like, I am using a lot of the experiences that I have in order to help other people reclaim and find themselves and be their true selves in this world, because the world needs more of your light. And when you are lit up, you can help people light themselves up, and you just become this beautiful lighthouse for other people, helping them know that there is a different way. And so, I was working with a client, and we were talking about consecration, of really giving up this work, your life, for a higher purpose, for serving the collective, for giving it up to the goddess, God, source, power, anything that you want to call it, Mama Gaia. And that's what it's about. Originally there are moments when I want to get into it for ego, but I'm just constantly reminded, no, this thing is bigger than me, that what I went through is bigger than me. And that is a purpose for, most of the challenges, is that if you can get through it, you can help someone else get through it, and you can lighten their burden. And so I'm feeling that this episode is complete. Thank you so much for tuning in and listening. And drop me a line, DM, if you want to learn more, if you're trying to get sober, all of that stuff. And also, I would love to work with you. So I am taking one-on-one clients, a 6-month mentorship journey where I guide first and second generation women on the sacred feminine journey to increase their confidence, their self-love, self-worth in all areas of their life. And it's just something that I absolutely love. It's really beautiful to guide people and help them and share different tools, share my experience, and just see you blossom and come into your true self, of really owning your power, your voice, and healing any of those core wounds that are hindering you from living the life that you truly, truly want and desire, and that's authentic to your core being. So anyways, thank you so much for tuning in, and leave me a note. Let me know how this episode landed with you, and I will talk to you all later. Bye.